It's Monday night. The Chamber Thing show has finished. Mags is with me. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, right. Rona's doing the rounds again.
COVID!
Matt and Mags are here, and that means it's time for Volley. Indeed, this is Radio Tekkers bringing you the Volley live here on YouTube and on Twitch. Don't forget to send a cheeky follow on Twitter if you want to keep up with what we're doing and when we're doing it. I'm a magnificent Matt Willis, and I am joined by His Lordship. Please be upstanding for His Lordship. Please go ahead, sir.
Kablam.
Kablam, indeed. This is obviously the last... I think it's the last live Taker show before Christmas, so happy Christmas to everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
We are obviously very happy to have all of you along with us. Dan Griffin's all in the chat saying, "Evening, lads. Good evening to you, sir."
Good evening, sir. And props to the two lads at UTT and their special guest for this week's episode. One, Matt Willis, I want to say his name was.
You flatter me, Max. You flatter me.
He's no Graham. Let's put it that way.
I put him in timeout, but I need him for the next hour. Right. So yes, we are getting crap. We have we meant to have 2 match days to talk about on this show today, of course. Unfortunately, Miss Rona is doing her rounds again with her Omicron handbag. And she's basically making things a little bit difficult. Dan Griffin is already getting excited in the chat, but you can rant about him in a minute, Matt, right? You can rant about referees.
We certainly will rant about refereeing. But yeah, before we get into the actual matches, how the FA have handled this Omicron variant outbreak leaves a lot to be desired for me. The way they have picked and choose which matches are allowed to be postponed, the timings of the postponements, the way that they didn't have a circuit break. It's bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, to the point where teams like Burnley, my team, are massively frustrated because we haven't had an outbreak, but yet we've lost 3 matches over this period due to postponements, and at times when the fans had already set off travelling to the games. I mean, less than 2 hours notice before the kickoff and the postponement. And then we've had other teams who had rampant COVID outbreaks, but weren't allowed to postpone their matches. The Chelsea one is a prime example. They had 10 to 15 confirmed cases, but were told by the FA that their match had to go ahead. It's not painted the FA in the best of lights the way that they've handled this latest outbreak.
Indeed, I've just put the bottom of the little ticker tape at the bottom there. Obviously, the breaking news this afternoon: the FA have said after meeting with all 20 teams, and all 20 teams have agreed with this, that all Premier League games over the festive period must be completed if 13 players, including 1 goalkeeper, are available. Is this backing into a corner, Mags, a little bit, or is it the fact that we just got to get things done?
Yeah, I mean, I understand they don't want to be in the same kind of situation that we've been in over the last 18 months or so, where we had such a huge backlog of matches that needed to be played. But a little bit of sense wouldn't have gone amiss when the first outbreak happened and the first match postponement. If the FA would have taken a 10-day kind of a circuit break, we could have got through the Boxing Day and New Year period, hopefully without any major issues. But instead, it's been case by case, and we've seen that matches are being postponed at the very last minute, which is not good for the fans. It's not good for the players. It's not good for the view of football in general.
Dan Griffin saying that's a massive risk to player welfare. I would definitely agree with that as well. They have made some decisions which have been slightly more agreeable. They've decided to cancel the replays for the FA Cup this year from round 3 onwards,
Three, 4, and 5, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is a good thing because if they need to, they've always got matches, they've got weeks that they can catch up on. So that's sensible for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan's asking, is that 13 squad team plus the youth team call-ups? At the 13th of the squad you name at the start of the season.
Yeah, the 25 that you name at the beginning of the season, 13 of them have to be eligible to play.
Including a goalkeeper, yes.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we're going to get to certain things we go through, of course, Mags, about which ones were, which ones weren't called off. In fact, we'll start with, we might as well just dive in, Mags, with the first one, which was, of course, Brentford Man United, which is postponed due to their ridiculous outbreak. Because out of nowhere, bang, it went postal, didn't it?
And
they had 7 players.
That started the COVID ball rolling in terms of football. I mean, when we get to this last weekend's games, Saturday was brutally hit to the point where there was one game on a Saturday schedule, which is just shocking.
It was. I'm not saying I disagreed with it. I mean, in fact, apparently Man United had 7 players eligible. So if that was the case, obviously that was completely unplayable. Obviously,
yeah.
So Dan Griffin in the chat saying Brentford robbed a win. To be fair, the game will be played. It's just not going to be played down the line. So they still got a chance to win. To be fair.
Well, we shall see. I mean, Man United were actually not doing too bad in terms of league form. Won the last 3. And Brentford have been trading wins, draws, and losses over their last 5 games. So it would have been an interesting game to see. But the health and safety of the players is paramount for me.
Indeed, absolutely, and we will obviously no doubt be addressing this further as we go through this broadcast, Mags. So let's talk about the first game, which actually had some actual action in it, Mags, shall we? Which was Norwich and Aston Villa. A lot of people praising Mr. Ramsey in this game, and rightly so. Amazing solo goal.
Oh my God! What a great goal! What from a young kid who's under the learning tree of arguably one of the best goal scoring midfielders that England's ever produced, maybe the world's even produced. To do a goal very reminiscent of a Gerrard style goal. It was a sight to behold. The way he essentially took the ball from his own half and drove all the way through to beat Tim Krul. Great goal. Great goal.
Indeed. Obviously, this was Villa going to face Norwich, of course, and Dean Smith, of course, down the charge at Norwich. Things were starting to turn around a little bit. I mean, point here, point there, sort of thing. He was digging in, playing good football. But then Villa turn up and undo most of their good work they've been doing recently.
I agree.
Watkins is crucial throughout this game.
Yeah, I think Watkins kind of put the rubber stamp. He was he had the assist for the first goal, and then obviously got the late second goal. But he had a really good game. John McGinn had another good game, and the statistics are really interesting in this because Villa and Norwich shared the possession equally, 50% of the ball each. But Villa did so much more with their possession, having 10 more shots than Norwich did, having double the amounts of shots on target that Norwich did, and Norwich having 3 shots on target kind of it almost flatters them because Emi Martinez had nothing to do all the way through the game. The shots that Norwich had were incredibly tame. This should have been 3-4-5-0. This was a dominant performance by Aston Villa, and they should have scored way more goals than the 2 that they did. But the 2 goals is a win. Gets Villa back on the winning side of things, and pushes them back into the top 10.
Yeah. I'm very. I struggled to answer the but very hard to see Gerard said win the league of Liverpool 3-4-3-5. Don't get ahead of yourself, young man. Do not get ahead of yourself. Trying to pronounce the person who put the delivery in for Ollie Watkins is not easy. Mag, do you want to give it a go?
It's Chuck Mecca.
Give that man an arrow. Absolutely fantastic.
Whoa, that's cruel. Why would you do that?
I'm joking. Of course. But yeah, Gerard's doing a really good job. Won 4 of his 6 games, and the other 2 games were against Liverpool and against Man City. Nothing to be ashamed about on that side of things. Picking the points where he needs to pick them up.
Yeah. And on the other side of the coin, Dean Smith, whilst Norwich looked pretty bright underneath him, he's still only picked up 2 points out of his last 15. So yeah, it's going to be a long, hard run. They're still one of the lowest scoring teams in the whole of the league. Yeah, it's a worrying time. I think they've only got 8 goals all season out of 17 games, which is, yeah, that's worrying.
That is worrying. Equally worrying is what's happening at one of our standout teams from last season, Mag. We're going to move on from Norwich and Aston Villa. We're going to move on to Man City. Is it too hard to say annihilation against Leeds United, Mag? That would be a fair analysis.
I mean, 7-0 looks like capitulation, but it could have easily been way, way more. And I feel heartbroken for Meslier because I think he was far and away Leeds' best player. The fact that he's let 7 goals in, that for me isn't so much a stain on his performance, but more on the performance of the defense around him. They were woeful. Absolutely woeful, to the point where for John Stones' goal, which I think was the 6th goal, City had 3 or 4 attempts at that ball before a Leeds player even tried to put a tackle in, and Meslier performed acrobatics to keep that ball out. Yeah, he was severely let down by his team here, and it all started from Foden's early goal. Grealish getting on the score sheet with a header. De Bruyne kind of returned to form after a few weeks where he's not been the best. One of his goals was an absolute worlder.
Oh, yes, it was.
And even to the point where Nathan Ake is getting on the score sheet.
Without meaning to sound respectful, when he's scoring, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
he's not getting any game time.
And we've said it over and over again. This wasn't even City at full pace. This was at a canter. So the wheels have certainly fell off at Leeds, where City could have easily had 10 goals in this game. Easily.
Which one was your favourite one, Mag? Because I'm struggling to find anything positive to say about Leeds United performance here.
Yeah, I think in terms of the goal, the second De Bruyne goal was really good. Like I said, world beating. But I actually like the Mahrez goal, where it was a really well worked team goal. He just avoided the offside trap. I thought that was a well played goal. So yeah, I mean, this is what you would expect from a team like City, though. 7-0 against a very, very weak Leeds team. Every single defender on that team should be disgusted in their performance. And it's a shame because we enjoyed watching Leeds play last season, but it does feel like they've been found out hard.
It does say when Leeds' best player was Meslier, and he didn't even get a 5 out of 10.
And he let 7 goals in, but he was still their best player.
It does say a lot, unfortunately. Dan Griffith says it wasn't a football match; it was an obliteration. Yeah. I can't. I'm pretty sure that we can, unfortunately, all agree about that. I don't know what else to say that you haven't said, Mags, because
I think the issue is that Leeds relied so much on Bamford. They relied so much on Calvin Phillips that that when they're not there, this team has no structure, I suppose. They really are missing that defensive work that Calvin Phillips puts into this team. And yeah, the back four were horrific, absolutely horrific in this game.
Indeed. I'm going to put Leeds fans out of the misery if they're watching on Watch Back, and we're going to move on. But before we do, who showed his face in the chat all of a sudden? Si from Chain Wrestling, of course. Welcome, sir. Evening to you.
Never heard of him. Who's that?
Can I say, sir, by the way, that if I was to get cold for Christmas, I wouldn't mind that right now because cold's a pretty penny right now, so I wouldn't mind that at all. So I'd be laughing to the bank on that one. I'd be able to buy a football club with it by the end of the week. A little bit bad to go back and forth between Dan and Si. We'll skip past that though. Well, man, the Leeds fan, and he calls Liam Cooper League One Liam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people in that Leeds defence who don't fit in. They don't fit in with the Premier League.
Yeah, Deb could also Philip agreeing with you. Leeds suffering injury, but lack of quality of players for Bamford and Philip are so telling. This is all very true. This is all very true. So yeah, we're going to move on to the further Wednesday games. Brighton versus Wolves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and yet again, Brighton continue that tumble down the division, playing beautiful looking football, but not able to score in a brothel.
This is the thing. A few weeks ago, we were talking about them getting draws, and they were still 7th, 8th in the league. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a week later, they're down in 13th now.
They're the joint second lowest scoring teams in the whole of the Premier League with 14 goals, and it's now starting to show. This wasn't a classic Wolves performance at all. I think for long periods of the game, Brighton played the best football. But you've got to convert that possession and those chances into goals, and where Brighton failed at that, Wolves were able to pop up in the added time of the first half with Romain Says slotting past Sanchez. Sanchez has been a bit of a letdown for me this season. There are a lot of people putting a lot of praise his way, and I think he's not kind of living up to that. But I think this is now 12 games that Brighton have gone without a win, which is
in all competitions.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. That's pretty shocking.
Not good. It's not good. I think they could have done something better. Mm-hmm. I mean, the defending aside, the visitors could have killed the game off earlier. It could have been way worse than it's for Brighton. They should. I personally I don't think either managers are going anywhere this season. I think that they'll be comfortable in mid-table. I think the managers will have a bit of money to spend in January, not a great deal, but they'll be able to. I think they'll both be fine, and they'll be able to hopefully build better for next season.
The issue is with Brighton, though, it's whilst they're kind of like still 9 points above the relegation zone. A lot of the teams underneath them have a level on games or even have games in hand, which is a concern when you're not picking up points. You can be quickly dragged into that mire. I mean, look at Leeds, for instance. They've played 18 games and they've only got 16 points. Pretty much everyone around them has got games in hand over Leeds now. Which means they'll be quickly dragged in if the likes of Watford, Burnley, Southampton can capitalise.
Well, this is it, Megs.
That could happen with Brighton.
I mean, you in Burnley have got 3 games in hand on Leeds. If you were to win all 3 of those, Mags, you would actually be above Brighton,
or even draw the games in hand, which is Burnley's way.
If you were to win all 3 of those games, though, then seriously, you'd be above Brighton.
I mean, we've in our next 3 games, though, we've got Everton, which is winnable, United, which we have been a bogey team for United recently, and Leeds. So there's certainly at least 6 points there up for grabs, maybe even now.
It's this time of year where you never know what you're going to get, for sure. Wolves, they got a very good win here, from my opinion, because Brighton makes it a tough place to get a result, even because they usually dig in for a draw.
Mm-hmm.
But Wolves are now they're knocking on the door now, because they're now just, if my maths is correct, Max, and it's not the best, I'll be honest, I know. They are now just 2 points off of Europa League.
Yeah, I think they're in 8th right now.
Yep.
I think, the Man United currently sit in 6th, a couple of points above them. The issue is that Wolves have played all 18 games so far, and the teams above them have got games in hand. Certainly the teams in their periphery, Tottenham, Man United, West Ham, up to 5th, have all got at least one game in hand over Wolves. So that gap can widen. But
it can, but it's promising for them.
Yeah, they're certainly keeping themselves well within a good shout.
Indeed. I've got a lot of time for both these teams, mainly because Wolves can just sell their club players to Liverpool nowadays. It's all good. But they should never have sold Jota. I'm very grateful he did, but they should never have sold him. Okay, before we move on to the next game, Matt, a little bit from the chat. Sai is saying Matt sets somewhere different. Yes and no. I'm usually sit there, but I've got a Christmas tree in the way now, so I'm sitting at the table. I've got to be like an adult, sit at the table, be a good boy, all that carry on jazz. Right, so so unfortunately, Mags, obviously the next game, of course, is one of the postponements, obviously with Burnley versus Watford. This one wasn't a late call off, but it was called off, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it seems that London is rife with COVID. I think today there was nearly 100,000 new cases of COVID infections. So I'm glad that Burnley didn't have to go down there, because I wouldn't want any of our players to get infected. But it is frustrating that we're getting this backlog of matches.
This is the case, yes. I mean, the only good thing about it, and we won't stick on it too much because we don't like to talk about COVID, like to talk about the football, is that although there has been an extreme amount of cases being detected, the hospitalizations and the deaths are still relatively low. So, and because of the booster, get your jabs, guys. Get your jabs.
Man's due on Wednesday.
There you go. Max is getting his. So I've already had mine, my booster. Everyone get your boosters, and we can keep watching the football. Okay, keep doing that. We can go. That's why we've got Christmas this year. That's why we've got our Christmas, because you'd have to be a pretty big arsehole now to take that away from us. Don't say anything. Actually, move on before we carry on. Okay. We've got before we move on from this, obviously we got Sai saying I fear change about me moving seats. Okay, Dan Griffin in the chat saying reckon we'll finally get Adama Traore at the end of the season. Unlikely.
Would you want him? Would you want him? He's been crap this season.
Maybe so. Michael Pellegrini in the chat. Hello, sir. Evening, gents. Happy soccer.
Hello, sir.
Got to catch the Liverpool match. It's a good game too. Brutal game. It was a Tekkers watch long. I'm sure you watch it with us. We'll be rounding up a little bit towards the end of the show. It was a match to advertise the Premier League. Not saying about it in a good way. And Dan Griffin, timing of Burnley Watford being called off was fucking ridiculous.
It was, but it wasn't as bad as the one we'll get to for Burnley later on when we get to Aston Villa.
Dan Griffin is saying clock like Traore a force. Maybe.
Perhaps. But is he worth that risk? Wolves are going to want a premium for him. For me, in the what has been in the Premier League now, 3 seasons? I think he's only had one season where he's been a world beater. The rest has been ordinary. He's got the pace. Don't get me wrong, but it's the finished article. He's he's too much of a risk for me for Liverpool.
I personally think you're right. I like him, but I think he's much risk at the moment for sure. Palace and Southampton, Mags.
Yes.
Beautiful free kick from James Ward-Prowse in this.
Oh, beautiful finish by Broja as well. The long ranger, but yeah, James Ward-Prowse. Whenever you think he can't outdo himself with free kicks, yeah, he does, and that was absolutely stupendous free kick, so damn good. But they went behind pretty early in the game within 2 minutes. I think it was Zaha was given way too much space in the box. Was able to squeeze one past Willie Caballero. But yeah, it was a great comeback by Southampton in the last stages of the first half, able to really kind of put their mark on the game. And then it was just a collapse in the second half. Palace were well worth of the draw. They had way more of the possession. Ironically, less shots than Southampton. Southampton had 15 to Palace's 9, but out of those 9, 6 of Southampton's were on target, which meant that they were the more clinical in terms of attack. It was a busy day for Willie Caballero. I think he had a decent game, but for me, a draw seemed pretty fair.
Indeed. Let's forget that Jordan Ayew scored in this game. Now, the reason why I sound so surprised about that is because that was his first goal in 43 Premier League matches. As a striker, that is ridiculously poor form.
It is, and it always kind of baffles me how he's on the team sheet week in, week out. But like I said, he did score a goal, and it was the goal that rescued a point for Crystal Palace.
Indeed. Talking about Ward-Prowse's free kick, which I have to do, mate, because I could fawn about that all week long.
It was so good. So good.
It was. He scored more direct free kicks than any player in Europe's top 5 leagues this past 2 seasons. Although I would say that Will Hughes insisted that he didn't foul him. You did.
There was plenty of insisting that people didn't foul over this past week or so, mainly in the Tottenham Liverpool game. That was we'll get to that though. But yeah, I think this make Ward-Prowse like the 11th highest free kick taker in Premier League history or something like
that. This is the 5th. In the last 2 seasons, he's done 11th overall in the Premier League.
Yeah.
No.
He scored 11. Yeah, he scored 11 free kicks,
and that only Beckham, Henry, and Zola have scored more than him.
Yeah, so good. Such
and
a talented
kid. And he still doesn't get any England squad.
It's because the stuff in between the free kicks is not perhaps up to scratch to what England have got on offer though.
Yeah, but sometimes you give a little to get a little. I mean, but then you see who you got in that team. You got Alexander Arnold, and you got other players who
scored a worldie this week.
We'll get to that.
Connor McCabe in the chat. Hello, Connor. How are you, sir? Thank you for providing us with the stats on the Sampdoria versus Venezia game whilst we were covering Liverpool Tottenham this weekend.
Indeed, very much appreciated. Hampton again, they get going, they stop. They get going, they stop. Ralph's got to get that team in order.
Like I said, no win in the last 5. Picked up 3 points out of the last 15. It's a worrying form, especially as kind of like Leeds. The teams around them have got games in hand. And
if you're at Watford, you'd be sacked, Max.
Well, this is it. I mean, he must be now one of the clear favourites for getting the boot next.
Well, I'm pretty sure Rafa's still up there.
Even though they've had some not too bad results.
What do you think so? I mean, currently Rafa is the favourite to be sacked, and then it's Bielsa, and then Ralph, and then Ranieri.
Shock.
Fifth favourite to be sacked is Eddie Howe.
Shock. I mean, they have been piss poor, but we will get to them.
And then the next man to do that is Sean Dyche.
No, what happened? Sean will get a better job than Burnley before he gets sacked.
I agree, Meg. 25-1 is what he's odds are to be sacked. He won't be, no. He's fine. But it's we shall move on from Palace and Southampton. Batting from tonight a bit, Meg, aren't we? It's fantastic. Okay, on to this change the dynamic at the top of the table makes this game. Arsenal, West Ham. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was interesting game. West Ham seemed to have been falling off over the last few weeks. They were on a great run of form to the point where they were beating Chelsea, and now seem to be struggling again, which is a shame. Maybe they're being stretched too thin in terms of competitions, but this is a real change of form for Arsenal. Another team who came good, then kind of like fell off again, but seem to have come good again. Now we've this is 3 wins in the last 3. Martinelli has been an absolute revelation over the last few games.
We've been saying this for how long, Max? We've been saying this. My brother's been saying it for getting on half a decade.
Mm-hmm. But again, relying on those young, hungry players who show passion for the team, with Smith Rowe, who's had a fantastic week. Martinelli's had a fantastic week. After all the issues they had with Aubameyang and him kind of throwing his toys out of the pram, it was a very steely performance by Arsenal, and really kind of took West Ham to the sword. Really, in terms of stats, they had more of the ball. They had 3 times the amount of shots that West Ham did. 21 shots to 7 at West Ham. West Ham only had 1 shot on target, where Arsenal had 8. And this was a good all-round team performance. There wasn't really a weak link in this Arsenal side, where West Ham have a lot to thank Fabianski for of keeping the score down. And then you get Kufal getting sent off, kind of like just adding more misery to West Ham's wars. I think Lacazette made a massive deal of that foul. I don't think it was even close to being one of the worst fouls that we saw the last week. His rolling about and play acting really left a sour taste in my mouth, and I was actually glad when he missed the penalty, because he made such a meal of it that if I was ref, I would have taken that penalty away, because he was over egging the pudding. But on the balance of things, I think Arsenal were easily the best side. Could have easily scored more. Tierney hit the crossbar. Saka came close if it wasn't for a deflection. But yeah, this was a cakewalk for Arsenal.
It really was. Ray Cash just pops in to say that he loves us, Mag, before and then pop out again. Hey,
yeah, and this is Ray Cash, but I'm going to refer to him by his government name, Rance. Yeah, he's in the wars recently with Laugh and some cruel things happening in his real life. So yeah, just show him some love. Give him a message. Tell him how much you appreciate him, because he needs the support right now. Yeah, exactly.
Especially time of year. Absolutely. Happy Christmas to you, Rance. Happy Christmas, mate. Okay. And I was talking about Smith Rowe. Dan Griffith saying Smith Rowe being benched by coming to score, playing havoc with my heart for FPL. It is causing trouble.
Yeah, I mean he's coming to. He's always been one of those players for me that he didn't look like he was ever going to live up to the hype. But this season, he certainly has. Totally is earning that number 10 shirt. From all the kind of Arsenal heroes that have worn that shirt, he's living up to that heart now.
Yeah, you got all the players over the years, like Bergkamp, Merson, and then you've got Gallas, and yeah, maybe we'll move on from Gallas. Maybe
I thought Gallas was a quality defender.
Not a centre half. What's centre half with number 10? For heaven's sake, God's sake.
Yeah, I get that, but yeah,
he worried. He didn't want number 3 because it's what a fullback wears, and he thought to play fullback at Chelsea. Get over yourself, you French idiot. Right.
Oof.
I had a problem with William Gath. I thought it was lazy as a centre half, my personal opinion.
Wow.
West Ham got a hot with Slido because they got to be getting back in the Champions League hunt quickly if they wanted to be in the Champions League hunt. They lacked grit, I believe, is what David Moyes said about them.
Yeah, and with Arsenal's results further in the week, they've West Ham have actually dropped out of those Champions League places now, replaced by Arsenal.
Indeed. Of course, West Ham, I will find out in a little while, were unable to play, whereas Arsenal were.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, obviously, as we figure out what's going to happen with the Arsenal captaincy, we will let you know probably on the next episode of Tekkers.
I think they've been they've put it on Lacazette over the last couple of games.
He was vice captain, makes sense.
Yeah, and outside the theatrics with the penalty, I think he's done a decent job of leading the line. For me, I like Xhaka as a captain. If he could calm the tackling a little bit, calm the kind of the short temper he's got, I think he'd make for a great captain.
Well, he was the captain, of course. He was stripped from him, so.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll wait and see on that side. I think one thing I guarantee pretty much is Aubameyang in January could be on his way. And I don't think any Arsenal fan would be sad to see the back of him.
Well, the rumours are that he'll be probably heading to Barcelona.
Well, that'll be interesting, Max. That will be interesting. Okay, we'll move on to another side of things. Leicester and Tottenham obviously was postponed due to COVID as well, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So this Tottenham obviously had a massive issue here with the cases through their squad. Leicester didn't have as many and could have played, although they're not happy, and you're going to find that out later on. It got worse and worse due to injuries and COVID outbreak on their side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But the result that we are going to talk about next is Chelsea and Everton. This was a very young Everton squad.
Yeah, and it's a young Evertonian that sealed a point for the Toffees, and the wheels are certainly coming off for Thomas Tuchel. 2 poor results. I've seen them really drop off from being those early league leaders now to as it stands, being 6 points behind Man City. That's a huge drop off. Only 2 wins out of the last 5, and they should have demolished Everton in this game. Stats wise, it was ridiculous. This was men against boys. 80% possession, 23 shots to Everton's 5, 10 shots on target, 7 corners to Everton's 1. How this result is 1 apiece is shameful for this Chelsea team. Everybody was misfiring apart from Mason Mount. And it took till the 70th minute for that goal to come in. Everton were resolute in defence, and for a manager who is under the cosh in the way that Benitez was, this was a great morale building performance by Everton for me. It kind of shows that maybe he has got a future, a sliver of a future at Goodison Park. But
rely on the youngsters to get the job done, and like Arteta did, maybe it's the way forward.
Yeah, and Jared Braithwaite popping up 4 minutes after Mount had opened the scoring, just flailing a leg out to beat Edouard Mendy, who's not been having the best of performances recently.
He's going for a bit of a rut, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But I think everybody at Chelsea seems to be going in for a bit of a rut. They're not firing well enough in front of goal. They're not able to be as clinical as they were in the early parts of the season, to the point where we were almost writing off the Premier League, writing off the Champions League because Chelsea was so dominant. Now they're looking beatable, and Everton, whilst they were under the cosh for a long period of this game, they came away with a well-deserved point.
Absolutely, and much as Tan will hate me saying these words, Jordan Pickford played a blinder.
Mm-hmm.
He kept out, while it was goalless, he kept out Pulisic, Reece James, Jorginho, and 3 strikes from Mason Mount.
Yep, he had a great game.
He had a great game. This is sort of performance which England fans we want him to see on a regular basis. It's when he doesn't do this I have problems.
Well, I mean, Jordan Pickford's never going to be your favourite.
Well, he's not my favourite England keeper. No, Max, he's not. My favourite England keeper is currently Aaron Ramsdale because he's making that Arsenal back line look amazing. But I also respect how good Pickford is as a shot stopper and a penalty saver. And he's let's not forget, of course, that obviously coming to the end of the year, looking back a little bit, Euro 2020 final was held this year, of course, and Pickford saved 2 penalties in the final shootout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he absolutely did. And to have the players in front of him in this game and still put on a performance like he did. I mean, you're talking about an Everton team that led the line with Sims. Their subs bench was essentially pretty much all youth players. Bamin, Yango, Dobbin. They had to struggle to make a team, and yet that team were able to hold out one of the highest scoring teams in the Premier League. It's a very, very solid performance from Everton.
They got the job done, which is something which Everton fans will be very happy about. They want to see more of his guts. So when the first teams come back, because if you're not playing well, the youngsters are ready and raring to go. And this is proving it. This is presenting opportunities. And you've got to really grab the brass ring to use the resting analogy, Max. And the youngsters right now, they're hungry for it. We're seeing this as we transition perfectly, Max, actually, to Liverpool versus Newcastle, actually. We're seeing with Tyler Morton, who has had a bit of revelation this season, stepping in and stepping up. Max is just sort of duck out of the air, hoping he'll be back in one moment. But yeah, here he is, bang on time. He's back with me.
No idea what happened there.
I mentioned Tyler Morton, you left the chat.
Yeah, I don't want none of your pro Liverpool rhetoric. That's what it is.
So I actually didn't see this live. I was in an escape room at the time, singing Jingle Bells for Santa Claus. Don't ask; it's a long story.
Awesome.
But when I got home, I did watch the game on repeat, and I was not expecting Shelby to put one in from 25 yards out. Well, actually, I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's what John Joe Shelby does. He passes sideways, he passes backwards, and he hits 30 yarders. And he was always destined to score against Liverpool. It's him and Liverpool are going to be inextricably linked. And that kind of raised the spirits for Newcastle until Jota scored. And a little bit of controversy, I suppose, when I think it was Isaac Hayden was down in the box with a potential head injury. The slow motion shows that it wasn't actually a foul, and we discussed this on Twitter that the game should have played on because it wasn't a foul by the opposition. But watching the slow motion replay over and over again, there was some simulation here by Isaac Hayden. When he first goes down, he's looking around to see where the ball had gone before he starts holding his head, and then kind of lying and rolling down on the floor. Very, very much like Lacazette. Very, very much so. For me, that makes it even more imperative that the goal stood. And
Indeed.
yeah, I was very disappointed with the way he acted.
The thing is, of course, is that we now have a precedent being set this season now as well, of what happened in the Arsenal vs Man United game, of course. With a player being down, volleyed into the open net, obviously. We have a precedent, and it being, and if you go that precedent, then the ball goes dead. We've always said that. And Eddie Howe coming out and saying afterwards, saying like it was unjust for them to score when a player had a head injury. Then your players put it out.
Yeah. I agree. So getting back to the game, hero John Joe Shelby then became villain when he essentially passed the ball to Sadio Mane, who got a good save out of Dubravka. Dubravka was actually really good for Newcastle in this game, made some acrobatic saves, but he couldn't stop the follow-up from Mo Salah. And then in the build-up for the third goal, a little bit of a maybe handball from Salah, should we say? Maybe. Who knows? Oh no, that was the Tottenham. Was that the Tottenham? No, apologies. That's the Tottenham game. We'll get
ahead of yourself here, Max.
Yeah. This is the Alexander Arnold worlder, in it. The 25-yard screamer. What a goal that is.
This sort of goal we've been waiting to see him hit for a long time. We've always known he had it in him. This was Gerrard-esque.
It was a superb goal.
Well, one could argue it's Van Basten-esque as well. I suppose you could throw a lot of analogies at this, Mags. You could, to be fair, and every one of them would be possibly justified. Is this a surprise result based on the current form of both teams? No.
The surprise is the opening goal, but it does kind of show maybe a creeping issue with Liverpool that Alisson is not as infallible as he's been over recent seasons. We will get to some more issues with Alisson later on, but yeah, in terms of stats, 74% possession for Newcastle for Liverpool to 26 from Newcastle. Tingly underpants Trent. 23 shots from Liverpool to Newcastle's 5. Yeah, this result was more than fair, and I think the one goal flatters Newcastle, to be fair, and it just goes to show that bringing in a new manager and having all the promise of the millions and millions of pounds that they're going to spend hasn't done anything in terms of rescuing Newcastle, because they've still lost 3 on the bounce. They've still only picked up 4 points out of a possible 15. It's not looking good for Newcastle.
It's not, Mags. Transfer window open in 14 days. It can't come through enough, can it?
Exactly. But is Eddie Howe the person you would trust with bringing in players to get out of this relegation zone? I'm not so sure.
I don't know. I think maybe you should ask the Wicked Witch of the West, Mags.
Yes.
She should be the Wicked Witch of the Northeast. She looks like she's never had a smile, never had a happy day. You know what I mean? She always, Amanda Staley, she always looks so miserable.
If I may be talking out of school here, but I'm sure she's on the autism spectrum. I think.
If that's the case, then I may be owing an apology here.
I'm going to Google it because I don't want to be labelling her.
I have seen her smile and I have seen her laugh. To be fair, so I am a little bit. But when she's miserable, she's properly miserable.
Oh, it's not autism. She's got Huntington's disease.
Well, look, she had my sympathies for that side of things. But yeah, she's always. But in fairness, she is watching Newcastle play at the moment, and that would make it.
There's not a lot to smile about.
No, too great. And Deck had been back since that first game, mate. You know that, right? which is a little really. Yeah, so we will move on from Team the Underwear and Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mags. We'll move on to the Saturday fixtures, of which there were many, and unfortunately, as you can see from below us here, there was quite the
5 out of 6 games were postponed due to COVID.
Now, they were right to be called off, in my opinion, from these games due to the outbreaks they had. However, obviously, the Aston Villa versus Burnley game, obviously, Mags, I was standing in a queue waiting to be taken into the audience for Strictly Come Dancing at this time. So it flashed on my phone, Villa versus Burnley at 1500 hours. I thought, well, I know about that already. And then I saw a message from you pop up just after it, like for fuck's sake.
It essentially got called off with about 90 minutes to 2 hours before the game, which means that any Burnley fans who were travelling down were already on the way, which I get postponing the match. I understand that, but surely they didn't need to leave it till the very last minute before announcing it, because that was ridiculous to leave it so late. And that to me, they should have called for a blanket cancellation of all matches over this weekend. Luckily for us, they didn't, because we were kind of worried about whether the Tottenham Liverpool game would go ahead, especially with Tottenham having a huge outbreak, and then Liverpool losing the likes of Van Dijk and a couple of others to COVID.
Fabinho and Curtis Jones, and apparently a couple others since that.
Yeah. So I agree with the postponing of the matches. I don't agree with the timing. I think the timing was ridiculous.
You're not going to find any argument with me on that one, Mags. So any of the players who did go down with COVID-19 over this period, obviously, as someone who's had it themselves, I can say, get well soon, guys. Look forward to seeing you back on the pitch and where you belong, not in your beds, for sure. Get well soon to all of you. And, if you haven't already got it, get your boosters. Right. On to the only game that did happen on Friday, on Saturday, Mags, which actually turned out to be a TV game, as it worked out. Leeds and Arsenal. Oof. Talk us through it, buddy.
Yeah, and again, this looks like a brutal capitulation for Leeds, but kind of like in the City game, there was one shining light in this Leeds team, and he was the guy between the sticks. Yet again, I'm going to have to praise Meslier, because without him, this should have been 7-8-9-0. He produced some glorious saves from the likes of Saka, from the likes of Lacazette, Thomas Partey, Kieran Tierney again nearly got onto the score sheet if it wasn't for a dramatic acrobatic save from Meslier. But it's just the team around him let him down again. Martinelli was sublime to watch. This time, kind of doubling up on his game in midweek with 2 goals. Saka was as brilliant as ever, and yet again, Emile Smith-Rowe with the late goal. This Leeds team should be so disappointed with themselves, especially like I said in the City game. The defense let this team down. Absolutely let this team down. They did do something that they weren't able to do in the City game, and that was claw a goal back. But that was through a penalty from Rafinha, a well taken penalty. But this was a brilliant performance by Arsenal. Two really good performances over this week, and they've forced themselves well in contention for Champions League. I'm starting to be slowly turned to the Arteta way of thinking. I certainly don't think he's the all singing, all dancing manager that some people are calling him. But yeah, he's certainly guided Arsenal to some really good performances over the last few weeks.
Indeed, this time last year, Christmas Day last year, Arsenal were 15th in the Premier League, 4 points off the relegation zone. 12 months on, they're in the top, for guaranteed to be in the top 4 on Christmas Day for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah, and
that's ridiculous.
And a lot of it is down to having faith in the younger players. I mean, for instance, Martinelli, we've waxed lyrical about him pretty much all this recording, but this is the first time in his career that he's for Arsenal that he's ever started 5 games in a row, and he's you can't drop him. How do you drop this kid now? Scoring 3 goals in 2 games, and he was pivotal for Arsenal. Everything that Arsenal did right, he had a footing. It was such a confident performance by Martinelli, backed up from the likes of Saka, who just is one of the best players that England have produced over the last couple of years. Smith Rowe's been outstanding, and then you've got Odegaard, who at 24 years old is like the mature head in that kind of that front 4. And it's working really, really well. It's actually exciting to watch Arsenal for once. And I feel for Leeds, because we've said how enjoyable it has been to watch them, but they seem now toothless. They seem they give the ball away a hell of a lot. They've lost another injury now. I think it was Jack Harrison ended up getting took off after about half an hour. So yeah, this is not looking good for Leeds, and they must now be one of the favourites to be sucked into this relegation battle.
Yeah, it's looking that way, isn't it, Max? I mean, in this game, Arsenal, that front 4 of Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, and Lacazette were ruthless. 11 shots on target in the first half, which, by the way, if my notes are correct here, is the most by any side in the opening 45 minutes of a Premier League match since Opta started registering those stats in 2003-2004 season.
And it kind of shows how much they took their foot off the gas in the second half. That they only added that extra 1 shot on target in the whole of the second half, and that led to a goal from Emile Smith-Rowe. So yeah, this was a dominant performance by Arsenal. Well worth being in 4th place, and yeah, making us here at Radio Tekkers almost eat our words because of how we criticised them over the last year or so. But they certainly have come good.
I would say that I feel the criticism was deserved. However, they have turned the corner for sure. They've said they turned the corner now for sure. They'll be in contention for top 4 now, unless something really bad happens to them now, of course.
And before we move on to the next game, this game was controversial for some things that happened off the pitch as well.
Yes.
Leeds fans not painting themselves, or a particular Leeds fan, should I say, not painting himself with any glory whatsoever. First of all, props to Aaron Ramsdale. I mean, you praised him earlier on, but the way he was given so much grief by the Leeds fans who were behind him, and he took it all on the chest and had another outstanding performance. But there was one Leeds fan who was saying some particular horrific things to the Arsenal bench, to the point where Rob Holding, he was compelled to make a formal complaint about it, well within his right to do so. And I'm actually glad that he did, because this stuff is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form in football. That fan was ejected from the stadium and then arrested and charged. Absolutely, fully deserved, and another kind of stain on the reputation of football fans. Luckily, Leeds have totally disavowed him and said that his opinions do not correlate with the club, and they are happy to help the police in any which way they can. I assume he's going to get a lifetime ban,
lifetime ban has been confirmed. Yes, and
okay.
I'd say credit to the Leeds fans who shopped him as well. Actually, as well. So make sure that if you, as we mentioned that every episode of Tekkers, of course, when they take the name, there is no room for discrimination in any walk of life, including football. And if you find that at any point, with that link below, you can report it completely anonymously, and it will be dealt with.
Yeah,
well, visibility.
These people do not deserve to be in a civilized society like that we have now. So yeah, definitely, if you witness any form of racism, definitely report it.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on from that, Max, because we've got some more football to talk about. but I mean, first of all, we could acknowledge the fact, of course, that Everton was Leicester was postponed, and this is the last postponement, of course, of the weekend, because Everton and Leicester both had obviously been stretched rather thin, and Leicester is extremely the case, so they did actually allow that to happen. However, as we get to the moment, Max, it wasn't the same for everybody. But first of all, Newcastle and Man City. This is where the scoreline does not tell the full story.
No, this is another game where it should have been way more goals. Newcastle not doing themselves any favors with lackluster defending. I think it was Kieran Clark with the shoddy back pass, which led to the opener. And again, this was a canter for Man City. 11. It's hard to justify how a team can score 11 goals in 2 games and still not be performing at their best. It's absolutely unreal. Yeah. Referees not painting themselves with any glory whatsoever. You are right there. Edison should have been sent off. Massive. He essentially wipes out Ryan Fraser. Didn't even go to VR, which is ridiculous. But City were sublime. And yeah, you can't fault them. And the goals coming from every area of the pitch, from defence, from the wings. It's a lot of trouble here at Newcastle now. They need to be massively worried.
Indeed. I have to admit, I was playing D&D at the time. But
nerd.
Absolutely, I'm fucking proud of it too. But I did have the game on in the corner, and I was keeping my eye on it. And there were several times when Newcastle could have levelled it when it was 1-0. Several times they could have levelled it. Didn't take them because, well, actually they beat Edison. It was because the defender got back on the line. To be fair, they didn't equalise. And several times Newcastle made dangerous attacks, and it was thanks to Edison that they didn't get worse than that.
But Edison shouldn't have been on the pitch just before half time. So yeah, it's
But at the same time, when you see that scoreline, if you didn't know what happened on that pitch, you'd think, is that right? Because Man City will be at the top, Newcastle down the bottom. You expect this sort of scoreline.
I think that Eddie Howe's faced Newcastle has faced City 11 times throughout his career, and he's lost all 11 games.
Indeed. Guardiola did actually say we were lucky that Newcastle did not defend well for the first goal because it was our worst first half we played this season.
Yeah, and I think Guardiola had to miss a pre-match press conference as well because he had an inconclusive PCR test. Luckily, and thankfully for him, he then took another one which came out negative. So that's good news. But yeah, this was another lackluster performance from Newcastle, and yeah, you can focus on the penalty, which should have absolutely been a penalty, and we'll get to another one later on that should have been a penalty. But yeah, you just can't see a way outside of spending hundreds of millions in the January transfer window where Newcastle can pull the way out of this mire.
That maybe they can do it. Thankfully, they've got the money to do that with. Both. Of course, we'll keep you across all of that here on Tekkers, of course, as the transfer window builds and opens in 2 weeks' time, of course. Newcastle, they weren't even. They played some nice stuff at times, but not enough, and they didn't even start St. Maximin.
No, I mean he has been run ragged over this last few weeks, so. I'm not surprised if he's not feeling a little bit of strain. But yeah, this was so dominant of City. 72% of the ball, 18 shots to Newcastle's 5. 7 on target. Yeah, this could have been a hell of a lot worse for Newcastle.
Indeed, it could have been. They would have took this as they were written up before the game started, so. They're not. That's why at the end of the game, of course, as I mentioned on Tekkers on Sunday, they were still applauded off a pitch. Flags were waving, bright, the scarves were being twirled. Newcastle know they're going to have more important games to worry about this season. And
but in the situation that they're in, every game should be important because every loss is 3 points away from the escape.
This is true, but I think a lot of teams at the foot of the table will be writing off games against the championship contenders because, unfortunately, that's the way that most teams seem to be nowadays. And what a seamless transition, Max, from about championship contenders into a game which was requested to be called off and was denied. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Chelsea.
Yeah, and another bad day at the office for Thomas Tuchel's Blues. This means that they have dropped well off the pace being set by City
6
and
points
Liverpool.
now.
And their performance was lackluster. Yeah, it was affected by the fact that they had some big names from COVID, but that still doesn't stop the fact that they put out a pretty strong side. They still had players who would
to go through their squad quickly, man. That they started. They started with Mendy, Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva, Rudiger, Reece James, Kante, Chalobah, Alonso, Mount, Ziyech, and Pulisic.
Yeah, players who would force their way in the majority of every Premier League team. So it was just a poor performance by the former league leaders to the point where they almost went behind. I think it was Daniel Podence scored, but it was ruled out for offside. But yeah, the Wolves, whilst not looking particularly threatening in front of goal, they only had 1 shot on target. The problem was that Chelsea only had 1 shot on target as well. So this was a drag of a match to get through. A total of 12 shots in all of the game through both teams. We've seen, as you mentioned earlier, Arsenal got 11 shots on target in one half on their own, so they've almost matched the total amount of shots from these two teams. Wolves will come away from this the happiest, because obviously they're picking up a point against a solid Chelsea side, but it could have been so much better for them. So then they may look at it as points dropped.
They may well do so, Max. Part of the reason I think why this game wasn't called off is because Thomas Tuchel was unwilling to include his under 23 players. Because normally everyone can call them up, no problem, but he was unwilling to do so because they're training in a separate bubble. He didn't want to mix the bubbles. I thought at the moment they were all training in the same bubble.
Yeah, and I think that Chelsea are always going to be at a disadvantage in situations like this because they've got such a huge squad in terms of the amount of players that are under Chelsea, that even if they lose 10, 12 players, they've got enough depth that they can call up some of these younger players. So they're pretty much never going to get a game called off unless their opponents have no players to play against.
This is it. But we like Chelsea all we like, and we do like to. But at the same time, Wolves, big point for them. Big point for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And a pretty decent week for them all around, picking up 4 out of a possible 6 against tough opponents, to be fair. I mean, it's never fun coming up against the likes of Chelsea. So yeah, it's some really good results for them. But I think they're now in 8th. So even though they've only scored 1 goal in those 2 games, it's still 4 points, and it keeps them well in touch with those European places. It
does, and Chelsea needs to look over their shoulder because very soon Arsenal will be banging on their door.
In the form that they're in, absolutely. I mean, this is Chelsea who've got back-to-back draws now. Lost a couple of games ago as well. So in terms of form, they're the weakest in the top 4. Yeah, I mean, Arsenal have got a lot of momentum going on, and yeah, we'll see how that goes in the next few weeks.
I mean, I mentioned a few weeks ago I thought that the top 4 was going to be Liverpool, Man City, West Ham, Chelsea. But I've got a funny feeling now that if Chelsea don't watch what they're doing, they could end up out of top 4 altogether if they're not careful.
And West Ham could potentially drop out. You could see a Ralph Rangnick charged Man United force their way into that picture.
Indeed, and don't forget they're with 1 point behind West Ham as things stand, and they've got a game in hand on them. But West Ham...
They've got 2 games in hand on the rest of the top 4, though.
Indeed. That's what I was just coming to.
And Tottenham have 3. Tottenham have 3 games in hand on the top 4.
So the Champions League spots are completely up for grabs, and I do feel that already the top 2 are starting to stretch their legs a little.
Yes, one more than the others. I mean, Man City have gone? Is it 15 games unbeaten? Won the last 5. Yeah, and Liverpool, which we'll get to in a second. They missed a chance to keep pace with Man City, but we're on the halfway stage. There's plenty to play for.
Indeed, well, some of them at the halfway stage. Some teams are still a bit further back due to games in hand.
i.e. Burnley and Tottenham.
So we'll talk about Tottenham now. Their first game back after their COVID outbreak, so they've been keen to get going again. This was our watch-long game, so we won't dwell on it too much, Mags. But we made a lot of good comments about this at the time. What a pulsating game this was!
Yeah, looking back on it, I mean, obviously we were deep in the thick of kind of watching and trying to react along, but kind of having that time to digest it. This was an entertaining game to watch for a neutral. Kind of spoiled by some of the worst refereeing decisions in recent memory. Paul Tierney had a piss poor game, and even whilst we were doing the watch long, you mentioned on a number of occasions how he felt like he was losing control. His decision making was inconsistent. Sometimes it was completely inexplicable, and it almost ruined a really, really good game. Very end to end in terms of attacking. Spurs putting on a great performance, quality performance. Apart from the finishing from Son, which was, he had I mean, I know he got the second goal, but that was essentially gifted to him on a plate. The stuff he did before and after that, he was terrible. And kind of like a role reversal with Kane, who has been awful all season, but in terms of how he worked in front of the goal in this game, he was brilliant. His tackling, on the other hand, maybe not so much.
Yes, there are a lot of people out there who someone actually started one of those petitions we heard in Parliament to have the game replayed because of Harry Kane's I'm not kidding, mate. Someone actually has done that, but at the same time, I will say from the start that VAR is not the problem. It's how VAR is used. The system is absolutely fine. If you find it more this year, it gets more work done. What I'm amazed about is that, and I will say from the start, I am fine with Robertson being red carded. Okay, I said that he was lucky to get a yellow at the time, and obviously they looked at it, it gave him a red. No problem at all. This Liverpool fan is totally fine with it.
But it's the consistency.
Exactly.
The tackle from Kane was as bad as the one from Robertson, but yet Kane got away with a booking, and Robertson was given the red card. There was just no consistency there. And Robertson was actually involved in pretty much everything that happened in this game. He got on the score sheet. He was the assist for the Jota goal. He was brutally fouled by Harry Kane, and if he hadn't have kind of anticipated that tackle coming in and lifted his foot off the ground to kind of like take some of the momentum away from it, he could have been spending Christmas with a broken leg. If he'd have planted his foot, his ankle was getting destroyed by Harry Kane, going absolutely studs up. But then he then got himself sent off for a tackle on Emerson Royal, who shouldn't have been on the pitch anyway, because he made a clear foul on Diego Jota earlier in the game, essentially pushing him over in the box, which wasn't even checked by VR. It was a shoddy day at the office for Paul Tierney. And when Mark Clattenburg, of all people, is critiquing your refereeing skills, you know you've had a bad game.
It was I'm just trying to think of words that Jeremy said, not quite so biased, Mags. And it's not going to work, I don't think, unfortunately. I'm perfectly fine, actually, with the penalty not being given, because they didn't give the one at the other end either.
Okay.
But that's because the one at the other end wasn't a penalty. But at the same time, they couldn't give that one if they didn't give the other one. So there was some consistency on that side of things. But they should at least they should have checked that one. And I don't get how Kane didn't get that. He was a very lucky camper for sure.
And kind of coming away from the poor refereeing, on balance of play, Tottenham should have walked away with all 3 points. They had some huge chances. Son could have, on any other day, could have had a hat trick. there were points where the Tottenham's kind of counterplay ripped Liverpool's defence in pieces. And if it wasn't for Son kind of having being in two mans on whether to shoot or whether to take it around the keeper, if it wasn't for Alisson performing some heroics, this could have easily been over way before we even started speaking about the fouls. I mean, there was a point where Dele Alli had a shot which was tipped onto the post by Alisson, but then Alisson became the villain when he was out of position for Son's equaliser. Poor defending all around from Liverpool for that, and even an off-form Son couldn't miss that goal. And Alisson was rightly angry with himself. But
normally he clears that no problem. Normally,
yeah.
And it's a very rare occurrence that happens. That he'll be angry with himself for that, but he also won't change his style of play, and for that, I got to commend him a little bit for that.
Mm-hmm. So on the balance of the game, a point was probably good for both teams. Especially for Liverpool, when you think that Spurs had the more clear-cut chances. You had Mohamed Salah, who was looking to break a record, and he was pretty anonymous in this game. The only time you really kind of heard Salah being mentioned was when he had that inadvertent handball that led to the Trent goal, the one that I referred to in the previous Liverpool match. But aside from that, yeah, he was pretty anonymous. Not the best day at the office for Mo Salah. Maybe the pressure got to him a little bit. But Robertson had a great game if he hadn't got sent off. But yeah, I think a draw felt fair.
I agree, Max. To be fair, it was a fair result. Of course, Robertson being red carded, of course, means he'll now miss the next 3 games that happen.
Yeah.
Not the 3 in the calendar, but the 3 games which are scheduled to be Leicester in the League Cup and Leeds and Leicester in the Premier League, obviously, over Christmas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, of course, that's if games all go ahead.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting if those games are postponed. Does that mean his suspension tally crosses over to the next game?
Yes, it would do. Yes, because the game it got to the game which actually happens is what it's for.
Yeah, which is it's going to be a big loss because he was superb in this game. Apart from the ridiculous foul, I mean, like I said, he was involved in everything. He was the assister for Jota, scored the header for the second goal, and then quite silly got sent off. Yeah, he was all over the pitch. Was young Andy Robertson?
He was, and I was. I mean, I was perfectly fine with Simicast coming on. Obviously, to get place, he'll be taking the brunt of the work in the league games, no doubt. While Robertson's got a service suspension, he'll be back against Chelsea in January. Owen Black might get a go at fullback. He's got a great young talent coming through the academy as well. I look forward to seeing him in there. Owen Beck, my apologies, not Black. I don't know quite sure why I had black on my nose. I thought that's not right. I'm sure it's not, and it wasn't. He's a real talent, and he could play the League Cup game.
Yeah, and before we kind of start to wrap up, I want to give Tyler Morton his props for a young kid who was essentially forced into this game with illnesses and things like that, and in a very kind of makeshift midfield with Navigator and James Milner. I thought that he had a really good performance. He very early on showed that he wasn't somebody who can be intimidated, putting in some pretty rough tackles but I thought he had a solid game. He eventually ended up getting hauled off, and because I think he picked up a booking. But other than that, he had a really good hour. I was really, really impressed with him.
Indeed, more of the same, please, young Tyler, for sure. And then you'll be knocking on the door of the under 21s, for sure. And you go to some tournaments, buddy. You've certainly got the ability, for sure. Right, Mags. We've been through, technically, all the games in the last 2 weeks. So, with that being said, who is your player of the week, sir?
Yeah, a lot to pick at. I mean, if I remember last week's episode, it was sparse pickings. But this week there's quite a few names in the hat. Emile Smith-Rowe for one. Mahrez, who scored in both City's games, could be another. Meslier, despite letting in 11 goals, I don't think he had a bad couple of days. But for me, this has been the breakout week of Gabriel Martinelli at Arsenal. We've always known he has the ability to be a world beater, and in these last 2 games, he's absolutely proved it with the Aubameyang situation, meaning that he got more game time. I think Martinelli has been outstanding this week.
He has been outstanding this week. As you say, he finally got 5 games in a row. He has my vote as well, Mags, as well. Give that man start after start. He'll run and score and score and score. He is in a rich vein of form right now. How do you drop him?
Exactly.
Him, Lacazette, Saka, and Odegaard with Smith-Rowe with him. They are forming a really solid spine and a team that you can trust.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll tell you, they can put those 5 out there and say, "Go do it, guys. Aaron's got your back." Literally, what you could do that, and he's doing fine.
And it's something that we've said multiple times when we've been watching Arsenal play, that if you have faith in that span of young, hungry players, you are not going to go that far wrong. When you've got Odegaard, you've got Emile Smith-Rowe, you've got Saka, you've got Tomiyasu, you've got Kieran Tierney, Ben White maybe didn't have the best of weeks, and he could have easily been sent off. But Aaron Ramsdale, he's been a revelation. Even though we say time and time again, we don't agree with the amount that they paid, but he's certainly showing that he's been worth every single penny so far.
Indeed, he's taken them from 20th to 4th.
Yeah, Arsenal are an exciting team to watch again, and you can't paint a better picture than that for him.
And that can only be good for Premier League, seeing the young players coming good, eyes on the product, and if this week the action we did get to see, Mags, is anything like we're going to see over the Christmas period, then next week's Volley on the 27th should be very, very exciting. It'd be my last Volley, in fact, until I'm back from America, of course. I'm leaving it, of course, in your capable hands. I'm sure that it'll be fine. We'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
But obviously, we'll be back next week, of course, with the Volley wrapping up Boxing Day, of course. And I imagine there'll be a game on that night as well. So we're wrapping up that after Chain Wrestling, of course, which is here next week for their Christmas special. Of course. And
there may be some Boxing Day shenanigans here on Radio Tekkers. Me and Tanner have been talking about which games we may be covering. So definitely keep your eyes peeled to the Radio Tekkers Twitter feed and get yourself subscribed and click the notification bell on the YouTube channel so you never miss a Radio Tekkers broadcast.
Never miss us when we go live. It's always a good thing to just ring the bell. Go on, do it now. Yeah, done. Yeah, done. Perfect, lovely. Right, okay, keep Max happy, right? That way his lordship won't send Jeeves round. I want to Chris Harris. Right, okay. So in any case, Max, where can people get in touch with you?
they can follow me down here on the Twitters at PodfatherMags, where I am involved in pretty much everything that is churned out here on Radio Tekkers, as well as stuff over on Vino's Global Media and on the Chair Shot. So definitely come and give me a follow. Come and get involved, because I'm always willing to have chats about whatever subject you would like to chat about.
Sound like a good deal to me, Mags. You can find me at About Tech UK. You can find me here on Radio Tekkers on the Volley at the Volley Live for the actual show. So this is your questions. We'll answer them on the air if you send us anything. Obviously, you can find me here and on Visual Media. I've got a lot of stuff going on there. Christmas Cracker are flooding out right now. Great ones every day. It's just little snippets of what's happened for the year, so you should be getting involved. Max is just something audio only for a moment there. Thank you very much for terrifying me.
Not having fun with the technicals today.
Max slightly terrified me there. So yeah, I will just say so remember to follow the channel at Radio Tekkers on Twitter, at Volley Live for the show. Everybody out there, please do have a very safe and happy Christmas. We'll be back Boxing Day, hopefully we'll watch along with Mags and with Tanner, and I'll be back with Mags, of course, on the 27th after everything here on Tekkers with a Volley. Until next week, Merry Christmas, guys.
We're out of here.